Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of cLaSsIc FuDdLoRe. I'm Mike B, coming at you from Mommy's basement as always. And if I had even a penny for every fucking time I heard this one being suggested or me being nagged about in the comments, I wouldn't have to make these fucking videos anymore. I'd be rich. Anyway, so finally get it out of the way so you guys can stop nagging. You guys win. I submit. This one's going to be that the 22 long rifle is the most deadliest round in the world because it bounces around in the body and the skull like a pinball. That just random fun. I don't know. You tell me the region of the country they're from. But anyway, yeah, so that whole stupid fucking thing about the 22 bouncing around inside the body. This is probably one of the biggest pieces of FuDdLoRe bullshit on the planet. I don't know if it's exclusive to the US, but it sure is prevalent here. It was borderline stupid gun myth, but anybody with half a brain that is in the firearms community will actually understand that that's complete bullshit. So that's why it's technically not a full-on gun myth. It's more FuDdLoRe. It's a certain type of people that think this. So that's why I didn't put it on the stupid gun myth video before you guys get to there. Now we can get started. And before we get started, I just want to make sure you guys understand, yeah, I know this is a lethal round and weird shit can happen with any round, but to say it's the most lethal round because it quote unquote bounces around the inside of the body is just good old fashioned dipshittery. There's just no way around it. And unfortunately, this video is going to be anecdotal because I'm really not willing to test this out on myself or another human being. But let's just pretend to use our brains a little bit really quick. Sorry it's going to be anecdotal, but it is what it is. So first off, let's talk about the bullet weight and the way different bullets kind of perform generally while hitting a body. Again, these are general statements. The FUDs like to focus on something that might have happened once or twice and then perpetuate it as fact, kind of like the stupid gun mess video. Just because something happened once or twice doesn't mean it's the norm. Anything can happen. Life's weird. Physics are weird. But generally speaking, lighter bullets traveling through a body are more likely to, the word ricochet or kind of bounce, which is probably where half of this shit comes from, off certain tissues like cartilage and bone, and they also do other weird things, but they're more likely to ricochet, and heavier rounds are more likely to punch through and break bones or whatever the fuck is in its path. And when I say ricochet, it doesn't mean that it bounces around the inside of the body. Basically, what it means is it's just more likely to be deflected in a different direction than it was originally traveling, and still usually exits the body, albeit with a different trajectory than it had initially. So this, of course, is highly dependent on velocity, shot placement, distance, all this stuff, mostly on pure luck and physical conditions, like physics conditions. It's got to be one of those perfect scenarios for weird shit to happen, albeit it does. So this being said, this is true of any caliber weapon, and we'll get to that, but of course we got to focus on the 22 for a little bit. So as far as ye old FUD trope of the 22 getting its name from bouncing around the inside of a human skull 22 times, this is of course is extremely subjective, let's think about this one too and how it could happen, but generally it actually does happen. So just like almost anything involving bullet wounds, most people who are shot with a 22 long rifle caliber are going to be shot with quote unquote like mouse guns or Saturday night specials, basically cheap ass tiny handguns that are easy to conceal. A lot of gang violence, a lot of people that just don't have money or illegally get firearms. That's what they're generally going to be using in a lot of the gun crime in the U.S. They're not going to be spending $500 on a Glock, and all that stuff. So this is probably a lot of what perpetuates the 22 myth, although with that being used a lot in crimes, there's a lot more evidence and statistics on it. So again, my shit's going to be anecdotal, and they're usually shot at a pretty close distance. It's usually pretty personal, usually center mass, but often in the head, like an execution or just something people aim for the head. They think it's an instant death shot. So if you read multiple accounts from like ER medical professionals, EMTs, paramedics, who actually see this quite often and also really have nothing to prove to the gun community one way or the other, they've weighed in with things online that they've personally witnessed, and they just say what happened. They give a lot of different details. If you do a quick Google search on like the 22 bouncing around the body to see what some of these people have written, you can check that out. Anyway, many have the same exact thing in common with the 22. it's all subjective and totally unpredictable. Every case is completely different. Some people have seen people shot in the head at point blank who merely suffer a flesh wound because the bullet didn't penetrate the skull and kind of like bounced off the skull and followed the scalp around, and then either exits the scalp or stops in the scalp. So although a nasty wound and you're gonna have a headache and you just got shot, they've seen people survive those. Others have seen full penetrations from the skull where the bullet actually didn't exit the other side, but it penetrated the one side completely, and it was lodged in the head, and some people survived that wound and some people didn't. There was one guy that said he saw a guy that was shot 5 times in the back of the head, still alive, or I don't know if he was still alive. Anyway, they recovered 3 of the bullets, and he was shot 5 times, so that means that 2 of the 5 were missing, and there was no exit wounds. That, it was just weird. So it's just weird shit like this. So they've also seen cases where the 22 penetrated through both sides of the skull and the victim lived, and also the same kind of instance where it penetrated both sides of the skull and the victim died. Like, again, it's totally subjective. So just throwing this out there, but I don't think I've heard of someone getting hit in the head with a 30-06 and having the bullet glance off the skull or just simply penetrate one side and be able to not harm the brain at all. That's kind of weird, right? But anyway, so there's also been firsthand accounts of people really not knowing that they had been shot center mass with a 22, and while other center mass shots seem to kill the victim within a few minutes from blood loss, and they hit vital organs, arteries. Again, it would seem that shot placement and about 10 other weird factors have to line up in order for it to, bounce around or even just bounce off of something. It doesn't just go in and bounce around. It's not how bullets work. That's not how physics work. Unless the inside of your skin is a one-way thing and it traps any kind of projectile in your body, it's going to exit or it's going to stop in your body. It's like any other caliber. So again, I don't know how many times I have to stress. I mean, I could go on and on about anecdotal examples and fucking try and prove that it's all subjective. And you're either going to get it or you're not at this point. You either have cognitive dissonance or you understand what I'm saying. Now, all that being said, 22 is a lethal round, just as any other cartridge is designed to be lethal. It seems that one consistent thing with all these 22 long rifle incidents is that it usually takes a fair amount of time for the victim to bleed out before actually succumbing to wounds, if they do succumb. This can be true of many calibers, but depending on where the shot enters or what it hits when it enters inside, or where it goes if it exits. Again, all these factors. Now, one more little tidbit to consider is people talking about firsthand experiences again. The characteristics of the 22 do kind of generally mean that if it does hit in the right place, the bullet can redirect or follow some tissue from that ends up very far away from the initial entrance wound. While this is more typical behavior from a 22, it's not unique to the caliber. I personally know a sheriff's deputy who was shot by a 32 caliber handgun in 1991 in the neck, and he was paralyzed from the neck down because it hit his spinal cord, this tiny little pea shooter that people call it. He was paralyzed from his neck down. He ended up dying from that wound as a result of that wound in 2014. So, and the deputy he was with from another county, Alan Albee from Burnett County, Wisconsin, was also shot with the same gun, but farther away from the same person after he had shot Mike Severson, this other deputy. And Albee was shot in the hip. This other deputy was shot in the hip with a 32, and the bullet traveled from his hip up to his neck, and he died because of that. Now, again, it's not just a 22 unique thing. That can happen with any, sort of small caliber, lightweight bullet that isn't going super fast. And it just so happened to be those were both lethal shots. And the 22 performs relatively similar. So I don't know where this thing comes from. I think FUDs just they want 22 to be the most lethal round in the world because it's cheap. And during the panic buying of 2013 and 15, or between 2013 and 2015, these are the same stupid fuckers who sat at Walmarts at 3 a.m. on delivery day to swipe all the 22 long rifle ammo to either hoard or sell it because morons like them preached that it was the end-all be-all round for the inevitable quote-unquote shit hit the fan scenario. Bullshit. 22 is a lethal round and has its applications, but just like every other tool, there's no universal tool for everything in every single fucking scenario. I think FUDs believe this bullshit and have themselves convinced of this because generally they're incapable of comprehending new and different information that is different than what they believe to be true. I'd like to see one of these ass clown FUDs show off my shot placement with a pissed off grizzly bear, other giant animal like a moose or an elk charging at them. Yeah, I'm fucking sure you're going to be able to pull off that one in a fucking million absolute eye, like perfect eye shot, and that animal is just going to drop immediately. Yeah, no fucking thanks. I'll keep my big, mean, scary military-style rifles and calibers to defend myself however the fuck I see fit. And I don't think that 22 is going to be in my list of self-defense calibers. By the way, if you didn't know already, these are the 22 long rifle cartridges. 9mm, 357 Magnum, 5.56 NATO, 7.62 F51 NATO, 30-06. So, before you guys ask. So, anyway, yeah, I'll keep all my, mean weapons. I'm sure you aren't, the only... I'm sure you yourself, Mr. FUD, aren't the only tool in your shitty little garage, if you catch my drift. So why the fuck are there so many calibers if 22 long rifle is the most goddamn lethal? So that's basically all I've got. I know I could go on for hours, but I don't want to bore you guys with more just anecdotal bullshit. So who knows? Someday maybe the channel will take off really hardcore and I'll be able to afford enough to get like a pig skull or whatever, or a pig carcass to prove this. Even though several other people on YouTube have done this. So I'm just going to do the low budget way. Just kind of think about something a little bit differently. Don't believe everything you hear. Don't believe what I say. Look it up for yourself. Do research. Become a better person. Become a better firearm owner. Become more responsible and educated. Anyway, pep talk's over. All right, appreciate you guys watching. You finally did the fucking video so you guys can shut up. I know you guys have been like asking me to do this hardcore. This is probably one of the most requested videos ever. Let me know what you think. If I covered everything you wanted to hear, I don't know. Again, people that have their minds made up are hard to convince. So hopefully I at least entertained you and kind of gave you a different perspective. All right, I'm going to fucking cut this video because it's going pretty long. Thanks for watching, everybody. I do appreciate it. I really do. It means a lot. This channel's taken off recently in the past couple months, and it's really fun to make these videos, especially with the amount of positive feedback I get back. So I appreciate that. I really do. And if you consider becoming a supporter on Patreon, recently I've been doing a lot of shooting videos and stuff. Those cost money. And because of my current Patreon supporters, Ben Jammin being my top supporter, and I said I would do more shout-outs on videos. So there you go. Thanks a lot. And all the rest of you guys are making this possible for the channel to kind of become what I've wanted it to become for about 7 years. So Patreon makes that possible. Link in the description. $1 a month, $5 a month or more gets you into my Discord server, which I'm usually on. Pretty fun time. And it allows us to do really cool videos. I get other YouTubers and other people down here, etc., etc. If not, I totally get it, and I just appreciate you watching. We'll see you on the next episode of cLaSsIc FuDdLoRe. That's about all I've got on this one, guys. Fuckity bye.